Hello, this is Josh Hunter, presently in the city of Santa Monica, California. So, I'm pretty sure Joe Biden's gonna win. I got a couple of things that let me know. Um, for the last year and a half, I think probably 2 years, anytime I have like alcohol or a significant amount of alcohol, it rains. About like 95% of the time, and that's only been like during like the last year and a half, 2 years. As you know, a couple of days ago I found an entire bottle of Sky vodka and I drank it all within 40 hours, and it was really nice, but it did not rain. And so this is not the only factor that tells me that some difference is going to happen, but it lets me know that the environment itself is responding differently. So what this means is, obviously, we're going to be returned to conditions which are in some way similar to the conditions that we had in 2008. Because when you have Joe Biden, as you know, was the vice president in 2008. So we're gonna, if I'm not mistaken, there's going to be return to those conditions. Also, this will be the first female vice president, Kamala Harris, that our country has ever had. So, I'm not like an against women type person. I'm not like, oh, in fact, I was, when I was in ninth grade, which would be the year 2000, we had this thing called Today in History, where the teacher would say like, oh, such and such happened on Today in History. And we had to guess like what it was or something. I don't remember the specifics. Anyway, if we got the answer right, we'd get like some candy or something. And I found out where the teacher was getting all the answers. And so I printed out the paper and I came to school one day, and he asked a question or whatever, and I gave the answer. And I remember the question though. It had something to do with like the day that women got the right to vote. I think I remember like that was the question. Like what year? I think it was a multiple choice question too. It was like, what year did women gain the right to vote? And I looked down at my paper, and then I looked up. I said, "All right, teacher, this is when women got the right to vote." He said, good. But then he noticed that I had like some unusual documents on my desk. And so he said, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's my grocery list. See, look, milk, eggs, cheese, oranges." And then he came over and he said, I see you're cheating. Cheating on Today in History. And so he asked the class, and then there was a teacher who was walking by as well, who happened to stop in. And he said, "What should we do to this guy who is cheating on Today in History?" And the passing teacher said, "Oh, you should have a public stoning. Like, have him get up and have people throw rocks at him." Obviously, it's the modern age, so they couldn't do that. So what they did was, at the end of class, they had me get up in front of the class, and they balled up pieces of paper and threw it at me for about 5 minutes, maybe. I don't know. And anyway, so when you use the word equality, you need to understand what that means. Okay, equal means equal, and you need to understand like what you like as a female, as a woman. You need to be prepared for things that you might lose that you're not particularly aware of. Like when you constantly ask for equality, you really have to think about what that word means, because that's a mathematical term. Numbers. Equal means what's on this side must equal what's on that side. And I know, things have been tough for human beings interpersonal relationships, social issues, racial issues, gender issues. I know it's not like an easy thing, and technically, I don't know if I'm really qualified to speak on any of this because I'm not included in any fucking conversation. Like when people are having this conversation, they're not saying like, "Hey, Josh, you're included." So, but when things are equal, it means like there are certain benefits that you have. That you say you want to be treated exactly the same, then you're going to get treated exactly the same. And some of these things are more subtle. Now, I don't have any idea specifically. I don't have like, now that there's a lady vice president, women are going to get treated like this. But I do know there's some questions of biology that haven't been answered. Okay, now I'm not trying to say anything, but obviously there's a difference between a man's body and a woman's body. In the production of a child, okay, if you want to have a child, if you want to bring another human being into this world, if you say another human being should exist, okay, that the human race should continue, should go one more step, okay, the weight of that decision rests mainly upon the woman. Okay, the woman has to furnish the body. She has to nourish the body. She has to, go through the birthing process. The man has to nut once. And then technically, biologically, there is nothing else that he has to do. A child is to be brought into this world. Like, that's it. A man has to orgasm in order for a child to exist. A woman does not have to orgasm for a child to exist. Now, this is a question, okay, when you're talking about equality, because the bodies are not equal, obviously. I'm not saying, women are better, and I'm not saying, men are better. I'm saying if you want equality, you have to pay attention to these things. All right? If you want to bring a child into the world, the woman's body bears the most weight, the most struggle, the most pain. A man just has to nut once. This is not something... It means if you want things to change, you need to make sure you understand how you feel about this. Because if you don't know how you feel about this, but you keep saying, we want things to be equal, well, you're going to learn some things about yourself in perhaps some uncomfortable way. Okay, the female body has a, and I've so, if you are a woman and you're watching this, and I get a couple more weeks to the election, so I don't imagine that there are any women watching this right now. But if I were you, I would take a good inventory of your emotions and your feelings about being a woman and what it means to be equal and what equality really means. When African slaves were first freed, they had this whole thing, the Emancipation Proclamation, the slaves are now free. But they couldn't, but they were free, but to do what? They didn't have rights. They couldn't own property, they couldn't do anything, because it was almost, to some of them, better to have remained a slave because they were free. They were no longer owned by these individuals, but now they were just left out to the wilderness. I don't know. I haven't studied, but I'm saying it is my contention that something similar may happen to women. There have been a lot of unusual things happening, and there's something obviously that doesn't add up. Obviously, there's something that's in darkness that needs to be brought to light, and this is why I always try, when I feel really right about something, I try not to feel too right about anything. I never try to feel like, I'm definitely right about this. I mean, with the exclusion of I mean, accepting, like, when it comes down to, like, numbers, you know, like 2 plus 2 equals 4, you know, like, that's a good thing to be sure about. And so we keep using this word equality, but we need to understand what it means, because there are unanswered questions still. And when you keep demanding something and demanding something and demanding something, you need to make sure not only that you really want it, but also that you really need it. And make sure that it's something that you need. You know, at the end of that book, The Age of Innocence, Newland Archer was with his son, and you know, he was thinking about his relationship to his son and the difference between their generations. And he said, you know, the difference between his generation and his son's generation is that, you know, his generation was never sure that they should get what they want, but his son's generation were very sure that they should get what they want. And then all the warning signs and the guideposts that would tell you when you've gone too far vanished. They disappeared. Now, obviously, I'm just one guy who apparently isn't worth anything, not even a dog or a cat. Apparently, I'm just a worthless human being, and that's why I've been homeless for 8 years. So there's no reason for anyone to believe me. But I still think that women are going to lose something that they didn't think they were going to lose as a result of this. I'm not saying that a woman shouldn't be vice president, and I'm definitely not saying that a woman shouldn't be president. I'm saying that there's just make sure it's something that you want, and make sure that whatever it is that you lose, that your reaction to it is I guess graceful, I think. And I'm not, I don't have any specific idea in mind. I'm thinking about the amount of energy that people are putting forth into saying certain things, and generally the protests and the riots and all of these things. People are putting a lot of energy into this, and so in my calculations, all of this has to add up to only a certain number and type of events. And so I don't know exactly what will happen, but I know what happens when people are too proud. When you're too sure that you're right. Like, I'm sitting here, like, seeing people, like, the sense of moral superiority is palpable. Like, the people walking around, like, day to day, like, especially on the weekends, like, it's just like, we are so right, we are right, we are right. And I don't know, it's just, I would never feel that right about anything. I don't care what it was, even numbers. And I don't know. So anyway, I wanted this opinion recorded here, so that if I do turn out to be wrong, I want to know the degree to which I was wrong, and if I turn out to be right, I want to know. If I have some, like, type of arrogant reaction, or if I'm, I don't know, because sometimes I think that I'm arrogant, but I also sometimes just like to seem like I'm arrogant. I think I was in this exact spot when I said this last time. Anyway, just, when Joe Biden wins the presidency, just, you don't have to go nuts, because there may be costs and bills to pay. Because I know that I personally am definitely owed something that I have not been paid. And I am very sure about that. And because that debt I'm not saying anything in particular, but I have a sense of a debt. And because that hasn't been paid, I know that other things aren't going to move forward without this debt being paid. The structures that I'm talking about. Alright. I'm 34 years old, and I've got the best grades on earth.